Hi, welcome to the tutorial on creating and assigning overhead rules to a joint venture. The objectives of this tutorial are to understand the overhead cost of a joint venture, to create an overhead rule and add an overhead method to the rule, and to assign overhead rules. When you manage a joint venture, you may be able to charge overhead costs to the partners to cover the indirect costs you have incurred while managing the joint venture. For example, utility expenses are indirect costs that may be charged as overhead cost for the joint venture. To calculate the monthly overhead cost for a joint venture, you must create an overhead rule using the appropriate overhead methods. The system provides 6 overhead methods to create an overhead rule: fixed amount with escalations, fixed percent with sliding scale, day rate, and user-defined method. Each method has an effective start date and end date for calculating the overhead amount. This tutorial will show you the fixed amount and user-defined methods. For detailed information on the other methods, please review the JD Edwards EnterpriseOne Joint Venture Management Implementation Guide. Let's see how to create an overhead rule for a joint venture in JD Edwards EnterpriseOne and add the fixed amount and user-defined methods to the rule. Access the Overhead Rules program P09J50. On the Create Overhead Rule form, enter a name and description of the overhead rule and save the form. On the Edit Overhead Rule form, add an overhead method to the rule. Let's use the fixed amount overhead method. This method enables you to charge a fixed amount per month as the overhead cost. The fixed amount is based on the operational status of the joint venture or the business units. On the fixed amount subform, enter the base amount. This is the fixed amount that will be charged as the overhead cost for all the operational statuses of the joint venture or the business units. If some operational statuses are exceptions to the setup, use the exception operational status by section to specify whether the exception operational status is for the joint venture or for the business unit. Then, in the grid, enter the exception operational status and the chargeable months. Chargeable months are the number of months for which the overhead is charged to a partner when the joint venture or the business unit is at the specified operational status. If you do not want to calculate overhead for a particular operational status, then you need to set the operational status as an exception status and the corresponding chargeable months as 0. If you do not want to use any of the 5 delivered overhead methods to calculate overhead costs, you have the option to create your own method. This method enables you to attach a custom business function that performs the overhead calculation. On the Edit Overhead Rule form, select User-Defined Method from the Overhead Method drop-down list. Then, on the User-Defined Method subform, specify the business function name. Let's now discuss how to assign the overhead rule to a joint venture, to a parent business unit within the joint venture, or to individual business units within the joint venture. Access the Overhead Rule Assignments program P09J57. On the Edit Overhead Rule Assignments form, enter a value in one or more of these fields: business unit, joint venture parent business unit, joint venture, or company. Then enter the overhead rule you created to complete the assignment. To learn more about how to create and assign overhead rules to a joint venture, visit the task-based tutorial Setting up Overhead Rules in the Learning Path, Creating and Managing Joint Ventures in JD Edwards EnterpriseOne. You can access the learning path from learnjde.com. Thanks for watching.